Hello and welcome to another Star Wars The Old Republic video. I'm going to be showing you some of the best settings that you should really consider tweaking in your game. Some of them you are going to want to leave at the default, but others you are definitely going to want to change. But these are the most impactful ones that I think every player should think about and take a quick look into changing them if they're ones that you want to act differently. So without further ado, let's get looking at the first setting. So this one is one that I've actually already highlighted on a previous video. When you're doing a normal conversation like this, you're going to see dark and light alignments, and I've turned on this extra setting so that I see these dark and these light alignments in addition right there, so I don't actually have to hover over the choice. So if you're just using your keyboard to select them, then you get to see them. Let's show you what that looks like if you turn it off. So now we've gone ahead and we've turned this setting off. You're going to see that there is no more dark or light. Where are we going to find this setting? Well, under your settings, of course, you go into press escape, bring up the menu, preferences, user interface, and conversation. Show conversation alignment gain. And of course, subtitles. I do like turning subtitles on, but the show conversation alignment gain is turned off by default. So this one you do have to go in and turn on if you want to enjoy it. All right, here's another setting I absolutely love changing, and it is a per character specific one. So you have to remember to go in on each character that you want to do this. And a lot of times I forget. So we're still under user interface. We're scrolling right down to the very bottom and there's inventory. Automatically close inventory when using cargo hold or legacy storage, and automatically close inventory when using vendors. So a lot of times I actually like to disable the setting because most times I want to keep my inventory open when I'm done somewhere. So say that I open up my legacy here and I press X, you'll notice my inventory stays up. Exact same thing is going to happen if we wander over to the vendor here. Let's say we want to sell them some items or we want to buy some items and then we close it, our inventory window is going to stay open. So now let's change that setting around and show you what it looks like if you don't actually go in on each character. So now I'm going to open up the vendor, and as soon as I close that window, you'll notice that my inventory window closes along with it. Especially once I've completed everything in the game and I'm no longer doing my story and stuff, that's when I'm most likely to want to go and turn all of these settings off. Alright, so one other thing I want to point out to you is the cooldown text on your abilities here. If you're a default player and you've never changed these settings, you are not going to notice these numbers here. So you'll see I actually have numbers on there, and you'll notice they actually change to tenths of a second at a certain point. We're going to go back into our preferences, and we're still in the user interface part of the settings. We're going to scroll down about halfway, cooldown settings here. It's this show cooldown text. So this one by default is off. You're going to need to do it on a per character basis. And then this is the one, show tenths of a second. When I had it at 8 right here, once it hit 8 seconds, it would show 7.9, 7.8, so on. But when it's above 8, it's just going to show 10, 9, 8. I usually set this for 2 for the majority of classes. There are some classes where based on where their rotation is, you know that at a certain cooldown time left on an ability that you can proc it or you can proc something else. So it can be useful in certain cases to be higher than 2. I just like it even when you're not playing super competitive because it can be so annoying seeing that little cooldown thing tick down and really have no idea how long it is until that ability is off cooldown. Alright, so the next couple of settings that I want to show you are more about clutter and performance issues. So if you go into large group content, 16 player groups or larger, a lot of times people tell you flytext and nameplates. So this is where you're going to find them, again under preferences, nameplates, and you can change nameplates to see them on other players, so you can see all these nameplates on everybody, and that actually has a graphical performance hit. It does take CPU and GPU. And then flytext is the other one. Flytext is all the little things that appear when you damage things, when you take damage, when you do healing, so on. Those numbers can also create some performance issues. So again, a lot of people like to turn off those numbers, or if you're like me and you just like a cleaner interface, turn off a lot of these different flytext. So under preferences social, there are a couple things that you might want to consider depending where you are at in playing through the game. So if you're going to play with a friend and you both want to play the same class story at the same time, social, this is where you're going to find allow access to the same class personal phase. So say both of you are playing the same storyline and you want to be able to go into the phase together to help each other. Whoever is currently the group leader, or whoever goes in first, that's whose phase will become. And if they're the same class story as you and you don't have this turned on, they won't be allowed to enter your phase to help you fight. And then if you also want a little bit more control over your actual chat itself because of your social preferences or so on, there are quite a few things you can do by right-clicking a tab and chat settings. You can actually disable the general chat entirely, so you don't see what people are saying. Other chat, you can choose which ones you actually want to show up. And generally, this is a very, very useful thing to go in there and make sure that you set up a couple different tabs. You can see all this yellow text. These are system messages. I've got them disabled on here. So another thing that I want to go over is the loot. This is a really big setting that I was really thankful when somebody showed me that you could do this. So by default, you're going to try and pick up a piece of loot. It's going to come up with this pop-up window. You hit take all, and then you've still got a ton of loot beams to pick up. So let's head into our preferences, and under controls, right at the very top, we've got auto loot on right click, which means you don't have that little pop-up window that you need to confirm if you want to just have all the loot taken. And this one is the big one, enable area loot. So let's turn that on and let's take a look at what happens. Click on one body and I get all the loot automatically. So let's look at another setting under controls in general. This is auto target closest enemy. By default it's on. Thankfully it is an account-wide setting that you don't have to remember to change on each character. The general idea is that as soon as you press an attack ability, you notice it automatically just chose an enemy to target. But most of the time this is going to be totally fine to have this setting on when you're just kind of playing by yourself. But part of the problem is that when you're too close to another group of enemies and the current one dies and you're hitting the next ability, you're just going to put yourself into combat. And you didn't mean to do that, so it's going to mean that now you're suddenly pulling groups back to back, and it can make it very easy to accidentally die. When I was a trigger-happy Jedi Sentinel when I first started playing the game, I ran into lots of problems with this, where I'd be killing the last guy and then I'd be using my leap or something else and accidentally start attacking the next group. I highly suggest always turning this off, as it can create a lot of accidental attacking enemies that you didn't mean to do. So as you can see, if I'm killing that last enemy and I'm spamming an ability, it does not automatically target the enemies over here and start shooting them. Alright, so there's a couple other settings that I want to show you under the controls here as well. If we go down to the very bottom, let's look at ability action queue window. This is generally something that helps people who have a bit of lag, higher ping. So the general idea being that our global cooldown is 1.5 seconds. So you can see I can't do anything during this 1.5 seconds. But that ability activation queue window, what it says is I've got it set to 0.75. So if there's 0.75 seconds left on that ability, I can click an ability and get it to happen again. So this is really, really useful when you're doing things like you're using an attack. And notice how it started casting the force lightning. So again, let's just show you again. Let's click our dot and then click the second dot while the global cooldown is still in effect. My second dot got activated. It can actually increase your DPS quite significantly. The biggest reason why some players don't want to use a larger ability action queue window is the fact that it locks you into that choice. So sometimes that can be challenging on classes where things start glowing. So you think in case of this class where see that ability started glowing, now I can't cancel and change my mind to go to the other one. The other things I want to talk about is the show next target in cycle is very useful. I highly suggest turning this on. This will allow you to see a little arrow over the enemy who's going to be targeted next when you press tab. So I press tab and that becomes highlighted, and you can see now this enemy over here has a tiny little arrow, and now I know if I press tab, this is going to be the next enemy. I do want to just say thank you to everybody for your continued support of this channel. Without you guys, well, why would I keep uploading videos? So it's definitely been quite a journey. Started this in August when it comes to Star Wars: The Old Republic videos, and seen some great channel growth in the last little while. So thanks everybody for all of your likes, supports, any kind of things you do that help grow this channel. And the fact that you guys like the content, of course, you know, I'm trying to make stuff you guys like. Feel free to comment anytime you want, as well as make sure that you do give me a like if you think it's good content, and throw a subscribe if you can. It really doesn't hurt you, but it helps me a heck of a lot. All right, let's talk a little bit about a couple settings in the user interface editor that are very useful and some people actually don't know about, even though they know how to fully customize it. One of the things that I really like is system messages here. If you go under system messages, these are like the big red text. They tell you like the boss is charging up his implants or something special, someone's been targeted. I like to move this a little more central on my screen, making it a bit bigger, easier to read. And then you've also got an individual scale. So you can globally scale your whole user interface, but in this area down here underneath system messages, you'll see there's a custom scale. Very useful. The other thing that players like to do a lot under their player buff tray is there's an ability to choose how buffs are highlighted to make it easier to tell which buffs are yours so that you know when they're going to run out. So take a look through there and see how you want to sort them to make them easier. The other thing, of course, is you want to take a look at your target frame as well to change how the buffs work there. You can change buffs and debuff scale. And most importantly, there's a few options highlighting buffs that you have personally applied to an enemy, as well as debuffs, and you can set how long those are going to last for. There are a lot of other things you can change in the user interface. You can move things and customize them almost to your heart's content. I'm going to leave those though. There are some other great videos out there, but these are the most important things that have made a huge impact to me, is being able to move the system messages around, change the scale on a few things. As you can see, my debuffs here are a much larger scale, and I moved them somewhere that I find more central and easy to see. So hopefully you guys enjoyed all of these different little tips I went over for the different settings. I highlighted the most important ones that I think everybody should take a look at, because they really do make an impact on the game and how you play it. So as always, have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.